Episode 488. Combat underwater is a world apart from fighting on land. The players were being flung to the surface one after another. But what kind of attack had they suffered? None of these players could figure it out, but at least they finally saw what was lurking beneath the water.
Lord Grim, Windward Formation.
The players who had sunk into the water had already hurriedly sent messages in the team chat.
Damn it.
The people who got the news all cursed in unison, because those two names carried far too much weight. They had Ye Qiu and Su Mu Cheng backing them up, a duo that stood at the absolute pinnacle of the entire pro scene. Even with dozens of them facing these two, they still had absolutely no confidence. All at once, the characters who had been making such a ruckus on the water's surface a moment ago fell completely motionless. They had encountered these two, fight or not. They were hoping for a clear signal. 3 distinct splashes sounded in quick succession, followed by a fourth, as the 4 players plunged back into the water one after another. You can perform a quick recover in the water, but the effect isn't like flipping upright on the surface. It just gives you a smooth transition after breaking the surface, letting you adjust your posture quickly instead of sinking like a stone. On solid ground, a quick recover is a maneuver these elite guild players can perform with ease. But on water, very few have bothered to practice that specific skill. All 4 players failed their quick recover attempts in a row. 4 distinct splashes echoed, and the quartet sank straight down in a gurgling heap, just like being knocked flat on solid ground. After a moment, the 4 players finally steadied themselves on the riverbed and prepared to surface. Suddenly, bubbles erupted all around them. They twisted their perspectives just in time to see a brilliant beam of light surging toward them. Su Mu Cheng's launcher had fired a laser rifle from underwater. In a game, unless a skill has a special note, you can use any ability underwater. The environment just changes the effect. Most attacks were slowed down by the water's resistance, but the launcher's laser cannon seemed unaffected, its speed just as blistering. A player's movements underwater are also affected by drag, making them far less agile than on land. So how could anyone possibly dodge an attack that was already lightning fast? The laser cannon fired from the lakebed shot a beam of light so intense it was visible even on the surface. Refracted and reflected through a chaotic mess of optical phenomena, the spectacle looked even more spectacular than if it had been fired on land. The 4 players were skewered like kebabs by that laser blast. They weren't dead, but they were seriously hurt. Already dazed and disoriented, the 4 players saw another figure swim towards them at high speed, brandishing weapons and unleashing a flurry of skills. All 4 of them saw the incoming skills as slow, certain they could dodge them with ease. They'd forgotten that while the enemy's attacks had slowed down, their own movements had slowed just as much. Their eyes were quick, their reflexes were sharp, but their characters just wouldn't obey, moving with a frustrating sluggishness. They were so sure they dodged the attack, yet every single one of them took it full on.
What's going on over there?
The players on the surface had no idea what was happening. They just saw 4 characters drop into the water like dumplings, then a laser cannon blast shot through, and then that entire patch of water began to churn and boil, bubbling and frothing without end. Put it all together, and it looked like dumping dumplings into a pot, lighting the laser cannon, and bringing the water to a boil.
Get over here now!
Just as everyone was still puzzling over the boiled dumplings situation, a distress call came through the team channel. Frankly, no one could tell which players were the dumplings that got thrown into the pot, but since this was the only spot that looked off, what other explanation could there be? Even though the boss hadn't given the order to keep fighting, someone was calling for help. They couldn't just stand by and do nothing. So the players in the water dove down and looked in this direction. The patch of water ahead was already churning like a raging sea, making it hard to even see how many people were in there. Everyone rushed over to get a closer look. Suddenly, a flash of white light erupted from the spot. The players were stunned. A quick check of the team roster confirmed it. 1 member had already left the party, which could only mean they'd been taken out.
Go! Go now!
The moment that player died, it was immediately clear which guild they belonged to. Their teammates began to panic, urging everyone to attack. But as the crowd surged in from all sides, the white light within that spray of water flashed again and again. Finally, the spray subsided. The lake water grew still, and only a single character remained, standing silently there.
Everyone stared. Lord Grim. 4 people, just like that, dead. The crowd froze again, not daring to take another step forward.
They had rushed forward to save lives, but those lives were already gone. Would rushing forward now just be delivering their own? Now that they'd all stayed, they couldn't help but start looking around. And when they did, they realized they had over 30 people here. They'd actually been scared stiff by just one guy. With that thought, they all felt rather embarrassed. Even if the other party was the great Yi Chu, they had the numbers on their side. There really was no reason to be afraid anymore, was there? Some were still thinking it over, while others had already started shouting it out in the channel.
There's only one of them. Don't be afraid, everyone. Charge together.
The words had barely landed before someone shot forward. Meanwhile, Yi Chu's Lord Grim wasn't just waiting around. He'd already taken out 4 players underwater, and his oxygen was running low. Without hesitation, he shot toward the surface.
Keep him under control. Don't let him surface.
Someone noticed this move, and immediately realized Lord Grim was running out of oxygen. If they could just keep him from reaching the surface, they'd win without a fight. So they sent a message immediately, and 2 figures suddenly appeared right above Lord Grim, blocking his path to the surface. These were 2 ninja players. They used their shadow clone jutsu like a teleport, instantly jumping to this spot. They tried to block him, but Lord Grim just reached out and casually tossed a grenade. There wasn't much of a flash underwater, but the water churned and surged violently once more. Both ninjas surfaced alongside Lord Grim, but they were blasted up by the explosion, while Lord Grim had simply swum up for air. Lord Grim didn't pause after surfacing, immediately attacking both ninjas with a spear thrust to the left and a sword slash to the right. Meanwhile, Su Mu Cheng's Windward Rain was already waiting, her heavy cannon resting on her shoulder as she bobbed up and down on the water's surface. But for a pro player, that bit of bobbing on the waves didn't affect their aim in the slightest. Amidst the roar of cannon fire, the 2 ninjas tumbled and rolled across the water's surface.
Don't just stand there watching.
Yi Chu suddenly called out. Far out on the water, a character surfaced, its head just visible, looking utterly dazed. The name floating above it was clear as day, Chan Chung.
He's yours.
Lord Grim suddenly slashed out with a palm, and one of the ninjas, riding the wind and waves, shot toward Thousand City.
All you do is bully newbies and steal their mobs. Can't you find something more challenging to do?
Yi Chu said, handing off an opponent to Qian Chung. Lord Grim suddenly gave a little hop. He couldn't jump very high in the water, but that one small motion was enough to dodge the chaotic flurry of attacks erupting from beneath him. Then Lord Grim opened his palm, and another grenade dropped down.
Fuck!
The players who had just surfaced saw a grenade plummeting toward their heads. They scrambled to scatter, but how fast can you really move in water? With a thunderous boom, the water churned violently once more, sweeping the players in the area aside. Then, with another loud splash, Lord Grim dove headfirst back into the water,